Welcome. My name is Gabriel Leo, and I'll be covering the topic of SQL injection of databases. This PowerPoint will hopefully provide you with a better knowledge on the topic of security behind databases and how important it is. Shall we get started? So, what is an SQL injection? It is a coding technique used to inject SQL commands into data-driven applications. That is usually done through user input. For example, when user is either incorrectly filtered for string literals, escape characters embedded in SQL statements, those can usually completely obliterate your databases. Did you know it is considered one of the top 10 web application vulnerabilities of 2007 and 2010? It is usually due to the lack of code to completely secure a line of code for user input, and I will show a following example to make it clear and more visual so you guys understand better. So for the first example, say you have the statement in your SQL file saying, okay, select all from users where name equals quotes username and UN quotes and a semicolon. That is usual valid code if you're trying to get a username from a person who's trying to log in, and username would be a normal variable. That's fine. Only if I also type this into my username, you see how I began with a quote there? That would cause the beginning quote to end. Right after I would type or, which would then create the or statement, and I would begin another quote saying 1 equals 1. And I'll leave one quote out, so the rest would follow and proceed as normal. And the following would be the same idea, but as you see, I'm commenting out the following code. So if there's any requirements after that statement, they're canceled out. And this is where it usually breaks, because on the following slide, you will see the result that it can cause. This would be the utter result of the entire code that we typed before. As you can see, it creates that or statement where 1 equals 1, and that would always be true. So therefore, you would log in as a user and you didn't even enter a valid username. You just entered code into where you would put your username, and it still logged you in regardless of your credentials. That's an SQL injection. Is kind of like hacking. You're trying to bypass a security measure where you're just inserting code rather than valid input. As for the second example, we have practically the same line of code, only we just changed up a few things, but I'm going to type this instead. As you can see, I just typed drop table users. What do you think would probably happen? In the end result, selecting all from the user info where the ID is 1, that's fine, but right after I inserted a semicolon, I said drop table users semicolon. That would actually cause a drop of an entire table just from an input and a login input. That is insane how, if you don't take any precautions or any security measures behind this, you could cause massive mayhem to another person's database just by calling simple functions, and it could ruin their entire SQL. I'd also like to inform you guys that there's various types of SQL injections. There's the blind injection, where a web application is vulnerable to an SQL injection, but the results of the injection are not even visible to the attacker. So just like the drop table, I had no idea if the SQL had a table called users. I only assumed, but if I was correct, I would have done damage regardless. First order SQL, the attacker can simply enter a malicious string and cause the modified code to be executed immediately, which would also be something that we did. The second order injection, the attacker injects into persistent storage, such as a table row, which is deemed as a trusted source, an attack is sequentially executed by another activity. And there's the lateral injection. The attack can manipulate the input function, let's just say toChar, by changing the values of the environment variables, like the NLS date format or NLS numeric characters and such. So just so you guys are aware of more, I will be going over how we can prevent the types of injections and what we could possibly do to improve our security. So how can we prevent against such attacks? We can use parameterized statements, which kind of work the same as what we did last time, but using parameters instead. A placeholder that can only store a value of the given type and not an arbitrary SQL fragment. Hence, the SQL injection would simply be treated as a strange and probably invalid parameter value. We can use pattern checks, which are integers and floats or boolean string parameters that can be checked if their value is a valid representation of the given type. Strings that follow some strict pattern, like date or alphanumeric, and others can be checked if they match this pattern. We can use database permissions, which are limiting the permissions of the database logon by the web application to only what is needed and may help reduce the effectiveness of any SQL injection attacks that exploit any bugs in the web application. For example, like denying select on. Well, that is my review on SQL injections and security. Hope you learned something new, and if you did, you should be able to get this comic. I really did enjoy learning about this because it really opens your eyes to see a lot of the flaws that many lines of code can have to break your security and let hackers bypass with ease and destroy your databases just by inserting stupid commands and messing up your entire thing that could make you lose thousands, maybe millions. Hope you enjoyed. Please feel free to take a look at any of my sources, and have a good afternoon.